All right, well, thanks everybody for attending this webinar. This is our first one in a series we're doing on the topic of PDM. So Bailey and I are gonna kick this off here, and then we'll have a couple more coming up in the following weeks. So I'll just do a couple of intros here. My name is Jesse. I live in Minnesota, but I usually hang out in Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. That's not a word, Willino, but graduated from Northern Minnesota, University of Minnesota Duluth. And my first CAD system I used was SDRC. It actually had PDM built in. So I'm a huge fan of PDM. I have been forever. And I'll let Bailey go ahead and introduce himself.
Hey everybody, I'm Bailey. I am, like I said, from Toronto, Canada. I'm a senior application specialist here at GoEngineer. I've been working with SolidWorks PDM and Manage, as well as 3D Experience. So a lot of data management, both desktop and on the cloud. And I just recently joined GoEngineer with the acquisition of CAD Micro. So that's been very exciting. I worked for a little bit before this in metrology, so doing 3D scanning, reverse engineering, and inspection. And I'm a big Toronto Maple Leafs fan. Some might say, unfortunately. I like playing ping pong. We've got a ping pong table in the office here, so we try to play every Friday at the end of the day. And I'm actually getting married on Sunday, so a bit of a busy time for me.
Yay! Super exciting. I can't believe you're here today, Bailey. This is great. Thanks for participating.
Of course.
Okay, I thought maybe we would just do a quick intro on GoEngineer. We are a reseller of Dassault and SolidWorks and many other products. If you look down the middle column here, this is kind of all the technologies we sell, support, and consult on. So we've been in business for a long time, and we've, as Bailey said, we've been growing through acquisitions as well. So we now cover all of North America. And here's kind of a footprint of where we have physical offices. So Bailey and I are kind of on the eastern and northern half of this map. So if you're in town and you stop by and say hi, we'd love to visit you guys in person in one of our offices, carry these conversations a little bit further. But I think we'll dive right in here. Today's topic is why high-performing teams use SolidWorks PDM to work smarter. Now, Bailey and I, we sort of curated these topics. There's obviously going to be more than 10, but we chose 10 that we thought were the most impactful for most businesses, and we'll kind of go through these today. I think maybe before we do that, let's start off with a little interactive poll. So let's see if we can launch this and get some feedback. So we're going to ask you guys, on a typical day-to-day work in your companies, where do you store your engineering data, your files, your documents? And I'll just pop this up here. And
yeah, so I've just got it open here, and then.
So there should be a poll tab on the upper right next to the chat. So go ahead and choose your best answer. Where do you store your engineering data? You can choose and then hit submit, and we'll just let the answers kind of filter in here a little bit. Are we allowed to answer, Bailey? Are we going to skew the results?
Looks like we got a lot of votes coming in here. So I think by now
we got a ton of votes. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Can you share those with us?
Yeah. I think by now pretty much everybody's done there. So it looks like just on our end, we can see pretty much a big majority of people right now are sharing are storing their files, particularly on shared network drives. We've got some cloud storage, some also with PDM, which is SolidWorks PDM, which is great. But the real key here is, yeah, we've got a lot of people storing on a shared network drive. today we want to go over obviously SolidWorks PDM, and we're going to see how we can advance that, because there's really a lot of challenges and issues that people are experiencing when you're just sharing it on a local network drive, or sorry, a shared network drive, and some of that we're going to address today.
Should we close
Anything
that
you
one
wanted to
out?
add, Jesse? Yeah,
No, that's good.
that one.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's pretty common actually. So I'd say high 80–90% of you are shared network drive for your answer. There's a few PDM users, and some cloud storage. So right in the sweet spot for what you're going to see today. This is great. Do you want me to hit one more slide, Bailey, or do you want to share?
Sure, I'll go ahead and share.
Okay, I'll let you grab that real quick.
Yeah. So just to kick it off, I want to kind of talk about PDM itself. I know some of us joining here today might not yet be familiar with actually what is PDM, and we've already mentioned the term a bunch of times. I also can see someone's having some trouble hearing me, so if anyone else is having trouble, let me know. Okay, there we go. PDM itself stands for Product Data Management. Speaks for itself a little bit, but basically the core of it is that with PDM, we're going to store our data in a vault. And a vault is going to be a place where we're going to have secure data storage. We're going to be able to manage our data and control our files very, very easily. And not only is it just file control, but also with metadata. So that could be any properties or any basically data that's attached to the file that's going to carry throughout our engineering processes or throughout our work. And that's going to be really helpful downstream as well. Some of the benefits, or one of the benefits, is that we're going to be able to share really easily between departments and between our internal engineering team. And with SolidWorks PDM specifically, everything is being controlled through Microsoft SQL database. With PDM, just some kind of, I know we're going to go over some key benefits today, but with PDM, a couple of our biggest benefits here are we're using that metadata so that we can search, find, and reuse data instantly and very quickly. And then we're able to make sure that the right file is always being worked on by the right person and always at the right time. So really eliminating some of those major challenges with some of our existing data management, or if we don't have a PDM system in place already.
Yeah, and I'll kind of put some words in here, Bailey, on this one. This is the top 10 that Bailey and I came up with. We curated these just from our own experiences and observations over the years. Some of you may be running PDM Standard or PDM Pro at this point, or a different PDM system. So we'll kind of generically use these concepts in the topic of PDM, but I'm also going to just put in the chat here really quick before I forget. This is the link to our second webinar in the series that we're doing. So if you guys want to store that for later, we're going to take a deeper dive on some of these very specific topics in the PDM Professional version of the software. But that's just our top 10. There's probably 100 we could have picked, but we'll try to squeeze these 10 in here this hour for you guys. And let's start with number 1. Yeah,
and we'll make sure to share as well the link a little bit later on in the webinar too. So don't worry if you miss it. So the first item we've got here, and the first piece of PDM, SolidWorks PDM, is that it's easy to use. And when we look at new systems, new tools, probably the biggest reason people will avoid a new tool is usually because it's intimidating to use, or maybe they just don't have time to use it. But in the case of PDM, it is super simple and super easy to use. Part of that is, we can implement it very quickly, and there's little training required. And that's mainly driven by the fact that with PDM, we're operating out of a familiar interface. So PDM itself is really just an extension of Windows File Explorer with a lot of added functionality, tools, previews, and data that is being stored. So it's going to be really familiar for any users that are starting to use it. It's highly configurable, so we can tailor it to our company needs specifically. It's integrated with major non-CAD and CAD software, so obviously like SolidWorks, obviously, but other things like DraftSite, Microsoft Office, Composer, Inventor, AutoCAD, so other softwares like that as well. And one really great tool or feature of PDM is that we have a preview for files and metadata. So that could mean that we don't have to actually open a 3D file in order to view it. and which is really helpful for navigating for files, or if we need to maybe view a file to do a quick review on it, take some measurements, or even preview some metadata, like I said. So without having to open up a SolidWorks file, maybe we can see, you know, what's the material, what's the weight, and all sorts of details relating to that specific file. So I just want to show a bit of the interface here. You'll notice right now that we're still in Windows File Explorer, and you'll notice that the folders look a little bit different, and we got some extra toolbars and extra buttons with added functionality here. So I'm going to start off by just clicking into one of my folders here, and also notice that we have some extra custom columns here as well. And I'm going to go specifically to one of my project folders. Here I can take a look at what's called the data card. So this is going to give me some preview of some of the metadata information that I'm looking at. Again, just is going to be a help in navigating for files. And then if I click into that project specifically, and I'm going to go to my CAD data, here is where we're going to really see the benefit of these, first of all, these custom columns. So something typically like, or typically when you're storing your files, your file name could be a serial number, or you know, something kind of generic or based on a file convention naming system. In this case, we can use our description to really easily help us find files. And we've also got other columns here for like a custom column, for example, type, whether it's a built or purchase part, and some other ones that we're going to kind of discuss a little bit later on, like checked out by and state and checked out in. So if I actually click on one of my files here, so I'm going to just click on one of my sub-assemblies, and actually in this case, it's my top level assembly that I have stored here. The first tab here is my preview tab, and here's where I'm going to be able to actually preview the 3D CAD data without opening SolidWorks at all. So this is going to be helpful for maybe a manager who's approving a part and needs to do a quick review, and will also have the ability to take measurements. You know, anything that we can do in eDrawings, this is an eDrawings preview. So the next tab here we've got is the data card tab. We kind of talked about this a little bit already, but again, preview of some of that metadata. And we're connecting, there's a connection here between our data card and, for example, in this case, our SolidWorks properties. So that's going to actually map between the two without having to open SolidWorks. We've got some versioning information. The quick answer here is that, you know, every time we save a file into the vault, we're going to create a new version, and we can always revert back to those versions. And then we've got our bill of materials tab. So without having to create a bill of materials in a SolidWorks drawing, here we have kind of an auto-generated PDM bill of materials. It's going to give us a sense of what's inside that assembly. And then similarly, we've got a contains tab here. So this is going to show us, again, what's contained inside this assembly, but with a kind of a different view and a bit of a different focus on looking at the files that are being referenced by it. And then lastly, kind of on the opposite direction, we've got our where used tab. And instead of showing what's contained in it, it's going to show where it's being used. In this case, we're looking at a top level assembly, so it's not being used anywhere. But if we actually click on one of our part files, we're going to be able to see, you know, this file is being used in subassembly here, and we're going to be able to use that to navigate really quickly to that assembly or top level assembly that it's being used in. And then once again, we can, you know, take a look at our preview, and we can also again look at our data card, any other of that, any other metadata that we want to take a look at. So that's really the first piece is just, it's really easy to use, so people will use it.
Yeah, that's a great overview, Bailey. Thanks for that. I always joke to people, you know, if you install and use this PDM product, because it's Windows Explorer, everything you did is just a right click to get at the little additional PDM functions within Windows Explorer. So right click, and you'll probably find the answer, or double click, you know, those are the two. Double click, right, there you go. All right, let's see. Topic number 2, let me see if I can share my screen here. And I wanted to just give a little glimpse into sort of the inner workings of the software. So the topic we want to share is that when you're using SOLIDWORKS PDM, standard or pro for that matter, your files are always coming local to your own computer. So you're always working locally, which just equates to better CAD performance. The bigger the data sets you're trying to open, the more megabytes and gigabytes of files. Some of you make really large assemblies. You'll notice a huge performance gain on some of this stuff. So if you click on a file and hit the preview tab like Bailey showed you, that file initially resides on the server in what we call the archives. That's the safe storage for everything that's stored in the system. It automatically gets or pulls that file across your network to your C drive, and then you have the ability to preview it, open it, save it, close it. All those sort of file operations happen right off your C drive. Maybe I'll just kind of show you what that would look like here, and how you can actually tell what's going on. So very similar to what Bailey showed. I'm just looking at some of my PDM folders here. They're green colored. That tells me I'm inside of an active, PDM vault. And you can see in the quick search in the upper right-hand corner, this is where I can search for those descriptions or part numbers or file names, and very quickly hit that database and get all my results. So there's the search result. Here's a small assembly with 5 or 6 parts in it, and I can see if I go to the version tab here that there is no local file. So searching is instantaneous. File access, we have the ability to get it locally when we need it, and only when we need it, via either opening it, right-clicking and previewing it, those types of things. Or right on top here, I think we have also another icon where I can just get local or get latest version. It's just a little PDM toolbar up here. And then I can also grab ownership of any of these files, and it'll pull them from the server to my C drive. And you won't see it if you've got a fast network. It's just there. And now I can see I'm equal number 3 on the server and number 3 on my local drive. And those are the versioning numbers that PDM assigns to the files, so that that you're equal, older or newer than what's on the server. And that's it. Now you're ready to work on your files, whether it's a CAD file, a Word document, a spreadsheet, any file that you've stored inside of PDM, you can now just open and work and save locally. So very nice. There's this hidden benefit here. If you do have these files local, and let's say for some crazy reason your network goes down, or your network cable or your wireless card become disabled, you still have the files locally and you can still work on them in the case of that happening. So it's kind of a nice benefit. And then, I'll just drag and drop these into SolidWorks, and that's a local open right off my C drive. And then it's just business as usual from here. So I can start working on the file, making changes, doing my design work, saving as many times as I want, and that all goes to your C drive. So that's kind of a look at what happens behind the scenes when you're using SolidWorks PDM. Works locally equals better performance. One of my favorite features of PDM, just for the performance side alone, I would say.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Jesse. I'll kind of build off of that a little bit as well with number 3 here. So yeah, we kind of talked about how you can work locally, you got better performance. And while you're working, we're going to be able to really enable this concurrent engineering, where we have engineers that are working, or people that are working in parallel, but we're doing it efficiently and without file overwrites or issues like you would have seen probably in the past that are similar to that. So again, I want to kick this one off as well with a bit of a poll. Have you ever used the wrong drawing? Have you ever seen the wrong drawing used for manufacturing? And I'm going to just,
I think I got
that poll open. So yeah, so if you guys just see on the right side, you'll see the poll and you'll be able to vote there. So give it about 10 seconds or so.
I'm looking at the answers, and this is quite hilarious. Not hilarious. Yeah. It's a reality, right? We'll show you guys the results here when we get it done. We'll see if we can put them up on the screen for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I think we got enough votes here to share. Go ahead and share those, Bailey.
Yeah, I'll pop those up. So actually, a little bit surprisingly, thought we might have a little bit more no's, but quite a lot of yeses here. So if you have seen, it looks like most of you have seen this problem, and if you have seen this happen before, you probably know that it's very stressful. It's going to cause a lot of issues, and it's going to cost a lot of money. And using kind of this the tools that we have in PDM for concurrent engineering to make sure that we're working together properly, we'll be able to avoid this issue. And this issue, like I said, can be very costly and obviously very very frustrating for anyone who has experienced it in the past.
That's awesome.
It was an astounding yes. So the basis kind of concurrent engineering in PDM, there are a few different subjects here. One being, anytime you're working on a file in PDM, you're checking it out and checking it back in. And what that means is that it's kind of like books in a library where you check it out, you work on it, you are the only one who has access to it, or at least access to edit it. And then when you check it back in, it becomes available to other people. The big benefit here is that we're avoiding the situation where someone else opens the same file you're already working on, they start working on it, they save it, they overwrite your files, and then all of a sudden, you've lost all your progress for the day. So this checkout check-in system is a big piece of PDM, and it's really valuable. And every time that a file is getting checked back into our PDM system, a file version is being saved. So here we're able to actually revert back to file versions. So let's say you maybe saved a file into the vault or into PDM 10 days ago, and you want to go back to that version of that file because you made a change along the lines that you didn't love. You can always revert back to it. We've also got revisions. So typically would be part of an approval workflow where maybe when a file gets approved, then we're going to create a new revision, and we're going to use those revisions to track anytime new changes are made to an already released file. And all of that's going to be tracked through a history that we can look back to, and it's going to be very detailed. That has all sorts of information that we're able to see everything that happened to the file along the way. All this is going to help us make sure that we're always working on the right file. So there's also some visual indicators when you're working with SolidWorks PDM to make sure that hey, this file isn't the most up-to-date file, or hey, maybe you haven't saved your file yet to your PDM system. So I'll show a bit of an example of that here. Is just here I've got this this sprocket CAD that I'm working on, and before I start working on it, I'm going to check it out. If you notice, before I checked it out, it would have been in read only, and now I'm able to edit it. So we can see now I'm actually able to make edits to it. In this case, I've got round holes that are associated with this this design, but what I want to do now is I actually want to make a change, and I'm going to add slots instead because I want to lighten this design. And you'll notice as soon as I save it, so we haven't checked it back into the vault yet, but we've saved it locally, so we don't need to check it in every time. But as I'm working on it, I want to make sure to save it. And then when it does get saved, we're going to see that visual indicator there, that little green icon telling us that the local file that we have saved is newer than the file that exists in the vault. So basically saying, you got to make sure that you check that file back in if you want everybody to see it. So if we go ahead and check that file back in, and I'm going to make sure to add a comment because this is going to help me when I'm coming back to the file, or if I want to revert back to a previous version, it's going to help me understand exactly what happened along the way. And then I can go back, now you'll see that the local file is actually the same version, so everything's up to date. And what I can do now is I can go back and revert back to one of my previous designs. So in this case, I want to check out my added holes design again. I want to see what that looks like, just to reevaluate it. So again, we're going to load that. PDM is going to tell us, hey, the local file that you have here that you're working on is older than the file that exists in the vault. So if I want to make sure I'm all done looking at that, and I want to make sure, okay, let's get that most up-to-date version, I'm going to make sure to go get latest version, and here now everything's back up to date, and we can see we've got that little equal sign telling us that. So we'll have the same indicators closing that, coming into the top level assembly, into the sub-assembly. We'll see that, hey, we're referencing an older file version. You need to make sure that we save our assembly, and then once again we're continuing to work on it, but we haven't checked it back in yet, so we can check it in, adding a comment again just for traceability and to help us come back to this design. And then the last thing you'll see is that, and maybe I didn't highlight this as we were going through it, but you'll notice that the versions have updated. So along the way, we're now in version 3 of 3 of our assembly, version 4 of 4 of that sprocket. And if we actually click onto that sprocket, we would see that we're going to be able to look at the file history, which is basically going to tell us everything that's happened to that file, who did it, what version was it on, was there a comment. So it's going to help us. It's going to help us understand everything that happened, and all this metadata is going to be able to use. We're going to be able to use downstream as well. So Jesse, I'll pass it on to you for number 4.
Okay, excellent. I've been monitoring the chat and the Q&A, and there's a lot of good stuff. So I have seen your questions, folks, and I will answer them as I get time here. Hopefully we'll get them all typed out before the end of today. But next topic here, web client. So, you know, SOLIDWORKS PDM is a true client server application. The server stores the source of truth, if you will. All the files get copied to the server automatically upon check-in. And then the client machines, this is us all sitting at our computers. We get the files on open or checkout and work on them, and they get checked back into the server. Now there's another option to access the system, and it's through a web client. You know, this is part of the software of PDM Professional, and it's just a decision you make whether or not you're going to enable this functionality in your environment. Some people do, some people don't. Some people keep it internal. Some people open it up for their customers and, you know, remote people coming into their system. But I'll just kind of give you a look at what this looks like. So, you know, we can log into this PDM with a web browser. So any browser, Chrome, Edge, Safari, on any device. So operating system agnostic, that's a word, and device agnostic. So I've tested this on most of them, and it's responsive. So depending on the size of your screen, if it's a tablet or a laptop or even like a Android or an iPhone, the web client window is very responsive and sizes itself to your device. But it would look something like this. So here's me just using Microsoft Edge as my web browser, browsing to the URL provided for the web client address. And then it's a name and a password, just like the regular client. And when I click on that, it'll let me into the vault via the web. And it will actually pull a license as well. All PDM licenses are 100% floating, first come, first serve, and they're 100% global. So I can start clicking on folders, just kind of like Bailey showed you earlier, but in a web browser instead. So that's kind of the initial interface when you get in. And obviously permissions are going to dictate what you can see here, but this is what it would look like just coming in the front door through the web. And then we can also look at some of the other functions here. You know, if I wanted to utilize maybe some of the search tools, in the upper right-hand corner, we could hit a little spyglass here, the little search command, and again, type in a part number, a description, anything that we're allowed to search on in PDM. And then we'll get our answer pretty quickly because that's a database search. And then clicking on the file will open up the data card, the preview tab, the bill of materials, all the same things that Bailey showed you in the original Windows interface, Windows Explorer. But here it's just a web version of it. So things may look a little different. We are still using eDrawings technology, but there's no software installed on your machine to run anything I'm showing you here in the web client. So we have the web 2.0 version of eDrawings to be able to do this activity right here in the web browser. So a static image is the way I have it set up, and then clicking here will launch the 3D viewer portion of it. And then you can actually, you know, if it's a part or an assembly, you can obviously rotate. If it's a 2D drawing, you could pan. Some basic rendering tools, you know, shaded with edges or wireframe. We can actually come in here and move some of the parts around, take measurements, cut cross sections, do an exploded view, look at the assembly tree, and change configurations if there's any of those stored in the file. So maybe I just want to come in, grab some things, pull it apart, and maybe take a quick measurement. A little bit quicker and easier to do in a web browser than loading up a whole seat of SOLIDWORKS and opening the CAD files and doing it there. So just a nice option for doing these types of activities in a web browser. And you know, I've done them on actually my cell phone before, and it is functional, but remember it's a little tiny screen, so you're using your fingers, not a mouse. So it is a little bit different experience depending on the size of the screen you're using on your devices. And then of course we can just go back to how it was when I opened it. There's just an auto explode here if you want to kind of move things around in space and take a look inside some of your bigger assemblies. The interface here takes a whopping 5 minutes to figure out. And you can hide and show things based on the hierarchy of the assembly tree. You know, if you want to isolate components very quickly, things like that. So the bigger the data set, the more beneficial some of these hiding and exploding tools and moving tools become valuable to do right here in the web browser. Now, this is just viewing so far and taking measurements and stuff like that. You know, you can also, in the web browser here, fully participate in other PDM activities above and beyond viewing. So I can actually kind of cruise to the upper right-hand corner here and, you know, approve a document, change a workflow state if I have the permissions to do that. So I could say this is approved or submit for approval. And that'll just tag the file and move it to that workflow state and do all the workflow things that it's supposed to do. I could also, if I have permissions and the right licensing, check the file out and actually download it via the web to my local computer and work on it in whatever software, as well as upload files with the check-in or create new button here in the upper right. So that's just a look at the web client. You know, I've seen a lot of people let their vendors and suppliers in on this tool, and then they just give them access to one folder where they can upload files. This takes the place of Dropbox and OneDrive and Google Drive and email attachments, and it solves the whole versioning and revisioning problem because it's in a PDM system. So this is a nice option for you that want to communicate maybe outside of just the little CAD environment itself and bring some other people into the mix here. So little overview of the web client there for you.
Yeah, that's great, Jesse. And also got a little bit of a preview of, you know, sending something to a workflow state, which is something I'm going to cover now with number 5. So again, number 5 here being integrated workflow. So with our data management system, obviously we're storing data, you know, we're managing how we work on it, but we also have integrated workflows that are built into our PDM system that are going to help us increase productivity and kind of automate some of those internal file-based processes. So in this case, workflows are super easy to set up and visualize. It's a very visual tool, like in terms of setting it up. They're going to be fully configurable, so we're going to be able to customize them exactly how we want to make sure that it's, you know, meeting our needs, and they're document centric, which means they're tied. The workflows themselves are tied to a document. So one example of that could be something like you see on the right here, where we're kind of going through a workflow of editing, approving, and then changing a document. And we've kind of got our change process almost built into that. And part of that workflow is going to include the fact that we can, when a file gets approved, we're going to make sure that the revision gets updated as well. And then when it undergoes a change, the revision as well. We want to make sure the revision's updating from A to B and B to C. And then another piece of that that workflow is that we can have automated tasks as part of that. So it could be something like, for example, maybe when a file gets approved or a drawing gets approved, we want a PDF to automatically be exported and sent to manufacturing. So that's kind of very quickly building that process in and kind of going beyond just storing the data. And all of this is going to help us if we have any company standards that we need to meet as we're working through our projects and working on our data. We're going to be able to adhere to those company standards, and we're going to have those tracked, so we can always come back to that to have a very detailed audit history. So this is just a quick example on the right side. And I want to show now a bit of a sample workflow in quite a bit of detail, but keeping in mind here that this is just a sample and workflows are totally customizable. So there are many different ways we can do this to meet our needs. So in this case, it's pretty much the one you saw on the previous page, where we've kind of got 3 main states. One is under editing, one waiting for approval, and then when it gets approved. The first state being under editing, this is where we're going to have our engineers working on our data, right? So in this case, the way I would have it set up is that there would be restricted viewing. We don't want our marketing and sales department to see data that's being worked on that's not ready yet. We're maintaining version history, so as we're checking in and checking out files, we're saving different versions, and we're able to roll back and come back to previous versions. The next stage would be pushing that through a transition. So here we've got a transition to submit it for approval. And as part of that transition, we're going to make sure that the proper people get notified. So that could be someone like a manager or any approver. We're going to change our document access to make sure that it's working to be approved right now. So we don't want anyone to edit it. So we're going to change our permissions on that. And as part of that as well, we can also have email notifications. And then when it gets to waiting for approval, this is where a manager might be looking at a file or an approver. And in this case, they could just be someone who's viewing a file. Like we talked about the eDrawings preview, that you don't actually need SolidWorks. So this could just be someone who's using that eDrawings preview. They're looking at the file, and then they're going to approve it based on that. They take their measurements. And with approvers, we can have as many approvers as we want, depending on our level of PDM that we have. We can support parallel approvers or in serial, and then we can have conditional workflow transitions. And in this case, we'll need it because when we're waiting for approval, we'll either want to reject it, or we're going to send a notification back to engineering and say, okay, now it can be edited once again, and engineering needs to work on it. Or we can send it to be approved. And in this case, we're going to automatically, or the system's going to automatically, depending on how we have it set up, set that revision, increment our revision, update the drawing title block based on new information like the new revision, automatically export certain file types, maybe even print our drawings, and then send email notifications to the right people that need to know of the approval. And then once it's approved, now this file, we could have different permissions on this file so that it's been released. Now marketing and sales are ready to look at this file, so now they can see it. And in terms of change access, we don't want people to be able to necessarily change it, but we want to be able to go through a proper approval process, change approval process in order to complete a change on that file. And we have the ability here as well to connect it to external systems, so we're exchanging data beyond just the PDM system. So like I said, you might also have like an engineering change workflow or states that are part of that overall workflow that are going to help you create changes to that release file. So that's just one example and one way in which it could be used. And that I just wanted to show some details on how we can actually control some of the permissions and what we can do along the way. So that's the workflow there that you just saw pretty much. And then, like I said, workflows are totally configurable. So we could have, fairly simple workflows. In this case, only 3 or 4 states. We could have even just 2 states if we wanted. And we could have more complex workflows. This one, I say more complex, but this one I don't think is actually that complex. We can get much more complex than this. And with those workflows, we can tie them we can have specific workflows for specific file types or specific file locations, depending on what the need is. And I mentioned one of the great things about workflows is that along the way, within those transitions between our states, we're able to perform certain actions. So in this case, some actions that engineers and engineering teams find very valuable, that is very valuable, is that we're actually setting the revision through the workflow. So we don't need to manually do any of that. We are incrementing it, and then also we're making sure we can do automated tasks in this case. So we can send the necessary files to manufacturing, like STEP, PDF, and DXF. So automatically export it and send it. So really powerful, and really helps. It really helps teams improve their productivity without having to kind of manually track their processes and document that. Yeah. So maybe Jesse, I'll pass it on to you for number 6 there.
All right. Let me grab a screen share here.
Yeah, and this will tie pretty well into the workflows we kind of just discussed.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll just take a little dive into some of the different ways the software can notify you. Automatic is one way, but there's several different ways. So I just maybe want to show you kind of what some of these look like. So first and foremost, the PDM software has its own dedicated inbox. This is what it looks like. So if I pull that up at any point in time, all of my PDM traffic will be my PDM notifications will be in this inbox, sorted by, folder notifications, file notifications, task automation. So you can sort of filter out on the left side here. The nice thing about these particular emails in this inbox is they all have hyperlinks on them. So you can see down below the little blue links. If you click on any of those, it actually takes you right into either the document and opens it. So in this case, it would be a PDF or a SolidWorks drawing. You can look at the card, the data card with the view column, the history, or click right into the folder. So you can see on the far right, I just go right into the vault and go right to that folder and highlight that file and start using it that way as well. So very interactive inbox. These can be pushed to your Outlook email as well if you want to have them come in there instead of the PDM inbox, or you want to use that instead of this, or both. So that's built in, and that's part of the software. It just shows up when you install it. The other way you can get notified is if you're working inside of SolidWorks with the PDM add-in turned on in the task pane on the right-hand side. As other people are working on documents that you may have locally copied and checking them in on their side, you'll get a little color-coded, sort of like a red here saying, this file that you have on your computer is older than the newest file in the vault, and it'll put a little red out-of-date marker on it. So you know that the one you have on your screen has been changed by somebody. And I think this kind of gets back to what you're asking, Connor, about parts being shared between many products and versioning parts that are used in different assemblies. This is the visual you'll see in any CAD file that you're working on a specific version of the file. It's up to you if you want to get the latest or leave it as is. So the software will track all those versions of every part, subassembly, sub-subassembly, and subpart, and let you know which one you have on the screen and cache locally at the time. So that's kind of nice. We also have the Windows task pane will notify you. The SolidWorks PDM just puts a notification in Windows. It'll pop up in the lower right on your computer and tell you you have new messages in your PDM inbox. So lots of ways to get notified, but at the end of the day, you're always confident that what you're looking at is either the latest or not the latest version of every file that you're working on. Connor, yes, I would recommend doing that. If you're going to revision a part and it's changing fit, form, or function, I would probably version up the assemblies as well, because you are changing the product design, so I would say yes to that one. I'm just kind of keeping an eye on the Q&A and chat here, guys. So that's a little quick bit about notifications there. Now these can be triggered by workflow activities. So when you're building out your workflow charts, we can just add an action here. And this is all the automation. And then on the far right, you can see the notification bell. You can actually click on that, add a person, a group, or multiple groups of people that are supposed to get notified when this workflow state change happens. If you enable the dynamic checkbox there, you can include other people on the fly for that one time that aren't necessarily in those predetermined lists of recipients. And then you can also just set a notification on the fly, on demand, for any document at any time, just by going into the vault, right-clicking on any file, scrolling down to notify, and then choosing how you want to get notified. Do you want to just get an email when it gets checked in by somebody else, or when it gets to the approved state or leaves a state? Or you can notify a colleague. You can say, I want to notify Bailey when I check this file in, and he'll get a notification. So it's a push-pull type notification there. This is completely independent of the workflow processes we talked about earlier. So really cool. And then you can hit the My Notifications area and get a whole list of all the files that you've set notifications on. If you wanted to come back in the future and maybe remove those notifications, you're done working on it, you no longer want to receive emails about that file. So it's just a right click, scroll down notifications, and then set them and forget them. Anything else on that one, Bailey, that you can think of?
Not in particular. I mean, like I'm a big fan of that last one there, just the right click and notify me when, because
Yeah, that's
I mean,
nice.
it helps if you're waiting for somebody to be done working on a file, and just makes it a lot easier. It's a sneaky good one, I think.
Looks like we got what, 3 topics left, 4 topics. Let's we
We've
got
got,
about 15 minutes. Yeah, let's
yeah, we got 4 left. We'll try and
jump
speed
right
it up
in.
a little bit, maybe. So next one being security and confidentiality. This one I think is a given, should be a given for any data management system or storage in general with engineering data. I mean, as engineers, our engineering data is really probably the most important and most valuable asset that we have. So we need to make sure that we're protecting that, whether it's PDM or any other data management system, right? So in the case of PDM, we've got really advanced security features. First being that any user with PDM is going to have their own individual password protected login. So that means anytime I'm accessing my PDM vault or folder, I'm going to have to put in my own password. And when I log in, depending on my permissions that have been set up, I'm going to have certain permissions to either file or folder locations, workflow states, or transitions. So I could be, for example, if maybe I was a designer who didn't need access to certain confidential folders, that could be kind of turned off for me. Or in a case where maybe I don't need access to my access in a workflow state where when a file is being approved should be limited so that I can't approve it. So we can set all sorts of permissions, and you can see just some on the right, and that's a fairly big list. So you can get a sense of just how much you can do. It could have to do also with the ability to modify, read, move, delete files, all sorts of different things. And also we can apply permissions on a group basis rather than just an individual basis. So if we have actually an engineering team and we don't want to go into each individual person and assign them certain permissions, we can do that on a whole group basis with our engineering users, our management users, maybe our administrators as well. So I just to show a quick example of that. Here we're looking at Windows File Explorer. You can see my PDM vault there. If I click into it, in this case, we're seeing Dave actually click into it. So Dave's going to click into it. He's a project manager, so he's going to have certain permissions based on his role. And when he logs in, he's going to type his password, log in, and then if he goes to a certain set of CAD data here, you can see as Dave, I'm seeing all this data, but also notice that the state here is project initiation state. And in this case, this project initiation state is going to be used for a manager to kind of set up a project for an engineer so that the engineer doesn't see the data until it's pushed to the next state where the engineer can see it. So if now Mike instead, who's one of the engineers, was to log in, and then go into the vault, check out that same folder, he's not going to see the same data. So this is just kind of one example of how we can use permissions. But I mean, it could be something like maybe Mike sees the data, but he can't edit it, or maybe he sees it and he can't delete anything. So there are all sorts of different ways that we can use permissions to control who has access to data and when they have access to that data as well. And I think, yeah, really, like with any data management system, like I said, that security is going to be a really important feature that should just be a given, I think.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Let's hit topic number 8 here. So we've sort of been alluding to collaboration thus far. Mostly we've been showing it to you on SolidWorks CAD files, parts and assemblies, but just to give you guys some exposure, there's other departments or softwares or functions that may also want to participate in PDM. Maybe not even engineering, maybe sales or marketing, or somebody else in your company that wants to use some of these technologies on their files. So I just wanted to let you know that we can use PDM in many different softwares. So there are add-ins actually for some of the Microsoft Office, Word, Excel, PowerPoint. Also, DraftSite has an add-in. SolidWorks Composer has an add-in. So we can attach the PDM icons right inside a lot of different softwares. And just to give you kind of an idea of what this might look like, here's just Microsoft Word, and you can see up on the top, the ribbon there, we do have a SolidWorks PDM menu or ribbon pick up there. So if I click on that, I get access to all my PDM tools right here in Microsoft Word. So because I don't have anything open, I could quickly run the search button, hit that database, type in a part number, a file name, a description. I'm going to search for all Word docs in my vault, DOCX, and I don't have that many, but there's 8 of them. And these are all stored in PDM and checked in and revisioned. So I could actually just double click to open one of these. And now once I have it open, I have unlocked all the rest of the PDM buttons, if you will. So there's some information saying I have it checked out on this computer. I can look at the card if I want to add some searchable metadata that gets stored in the database about this file. Always makes it good for searching and organizing data later. So I have a slightly different card here for Word documents than I do for CAD files, but I can see all that information right there. And then like the CAD files, we can also roll back and forth on the different versions. These are the different states that it was checked in as. So I could pull up version 1 of this Word document. It looks completely different than version 2. Same file name, same folder. It's just pulling up the older version of it. And then I can go back and get the newest and see the changes. So a nice little integration into Word. Excel has the same toolbar as well as some of the other Microsoft Office tools. Now we can also do some creative things here in the file structuring. So maybe I want to organize a packet of data, if you want to call it that. So I'll go back into my Windows interface here, and maybe I'll start searching for a particular file, maybe a spreadsheet or a Word document or something, and go find this wherever it is in my PDM system and just right click and say copy. I want to just sort of copy that file and then go back up to the search tool, find something else like a motor. These happen to be CAD files. And then I'll just check this out so I can add some attachments to it, put my name on it, and then paste that Word document on here as a reference. So now I'm virtually linking dissimilar document types together, sort of a concept of a packet, if you will. Then maybe I could search for a spreadsheet or all spreadsheets, grab my motor calcs spreadsheet, copy that as well, go back and search for my motor again, and also paste this as a reference. So now when I check in or out this SOLIDWORKS file, I can always see in the Contains tab that there are other documents attached to it. Now they can all pass through workflow together. They can all be checked in and out together, approved together, things like that. So now I've got sort of like an intelligent stack of documents. So I know that if I change the motor, I should cross-check, the other 2 documents there. So kind of a cool way to use the software with multiple document types. And then last but not least, I just want to show you guys that if you're working in organizations where you're not in a single building, you have multiple facilities in different cities or different states or countries across the planet, or you're working from home even, this may apply. So we can replicate files on demand or on a schedule, or both. So if I'm sitting at my computer, I create a document, I save it, and I check it in, it'll go into the archives in my building. This is the server storage. And then that immediately can replicate to all the other archive locations that we have set up in our PDM environment, whether it's across the street or in a different country. Now those users will pull that file from their archives to their local cache, work on it there, save it, check it in, bump the version, Rev A, Rev B type thing. And that'll go back to their archives, and that'll just replicate back to all the other locations as well. So this is part of the software. It's just a configuration choice, and you can bring archive sites online forever and ever in the future after you have your initial implementation set up. So this isn't an extra cost or anything. You can just add other archive servers and bring more people into the system that way. So just a little glance into some of the collaboration topics there that might not be so obvious.
Awesome, thanks, Jesse. Next one I want to talk about is number 9, search and reuse. In this case, SOLIDWORKS PDM this is really a big key to PDM as well, that we're going to be able to very easily and quickly find engineering data. And I want to also ask a question here. So I'm going to share a poll as well. So give me 1 sec. I'm just going to open up that poll. And I just want to get a sense of how often, sorry, have you ever lost design data due to overwritten or misplaced files? Or how often are you losing data? You can't find data. Try and keep this one quick, just because we're coming up to the end of the hour here. But I'm just going to watch those as they come in.
This should be 100%.
Yeah. So far we're seeing a lot of occasionalies. Not a lot of people. Only one person so far has never seen that, so that's great. Hopefully you're already using PDM.
Lucky.
I know we've got some PDM users already here. But yeah, definitely we're on the higher end of occasionally and frequently. So we know this can be a big challenge, a big problem. I'm just going to close the poll now, but this can be a big challenge and problem for engineers. And some things I've even heard are like, if you do some research, I've seen anywhere from 20 to 50% of an engineer's time or designer's time is spent looking for data, which is a huge amount of time, especially given how valuable our time is. So the big thing with the search, find, and reuse tools in PDM is that all that metadata that we've seen, and we've seen all sorts of metadata up until now, whether it's kind of the version information, revision information, any comments, any SOLIDWORKS properties that are mapped to the data card, the history, all that data we're going to be able to use in searching, whether it's just a quick search like we have in Windows, except with some more added functionality, or a more detailed search. And we can also do saved search favorites, have saved search favorites. So if there's repeatable searches that we're doing, we can save those so that we can search that very quickly. Maybe I want to see which files are in approval, so that I know what files I need to approve today, and I have that every day. And all this is going to help us promote design reuse. Hopefully we will never be losing a file and never have to kind of recreate a file because we can't find one. So just very quickly to show you that, here I'm in, again, my PDM environment. I've got a quick search up at the top right, and here I can actually filter or select different parameters to search based on. And again, this is customizable. So I've got a few, but you can add some more. Search something like a light and sprocket, and then when I search for it, I'm going to get a couple of results very quickly. Or alternatively, we've got our more complete search tools where we can actually search based on all sorts of information that we can set up. In our system. So it could be something like location, description, details like text in revision or version comments, data on the data cards, variable searches where we can actually have conditional searches here. It's checked out and checked in. Again, version data, workflow states or times. And then something that's also really valuable is that we can actually search the content. So if you have like specific text in certain documents that you want to search for, like a Word document, this is going to be where you can actually find data based on text that is contained inside it. So really great searching tools, and hopefully will help kind of eliminate the need to ever have to recreate, as long as we're using it properly, recreate or spend an hour searching for a file. Yeah, and I think we're getting close to the end here.
I got one more quick here.
Hopefully everybody's able to stick around.
Okay, one last topic, number 10, visualizing your BOMs and processes from PDM in 3D. So just a very simple example, kind of marrying a couple of things together. So what I've got is just a little assembly here. I've got it checked out. So you see the toolbar on top here. I already have this file checked out, and just wanted to mention that the newer versions of SOLIDWORKS PDM have included this tab up above in your command manager. So now I don't have to fly out the right-hand side of the screen anymore. Kind of nice, saves a little real estate there. So files checked out. I'm going to go hit the assembly visualization tool, which is just a SOLIDWORKS command that's been around forever. And this lets us look at our assembly in a different way, kind of quantities and file names in a linear fashion, more like a bill of materials. But I can add additional columns here and change what is shown in that column. So I'll add one more column, and now we have access to all the PDM stuff. So I can scroll to the bottom here and choose, the workflow state, for example, right here, and put that in as a column in this visualization tool. And then I can sort by that column. So if I just resize a little bit here, so you can see all the words, I can sort that column and see all my approved documents, all my waiting for approval, and all my under editing. And I can slide up and down with the sliders and hide and show things based on those filtered column results. Color coding is optional. I can turn that on or off, but there's my 2 waiting for approval files. If I kind of go the other way, there's my 4 documents in this assembly that are already approved. So I get a nice look at where I maybe should focus my work on using PDM data and not have to go anywhere else and kind of find that I can do it right here in this tool. A little bit more maybe spot checking something would be a similar concept, but we've buried the PDM commands in the right click menu. So if I just right click on any part in this assembly with the PDM add-in turned on, I will get a menu kind of near the bottom here for the PDM commands. And I can just bring up like the data card for this one document. Maybe I just want to look at the description or add some more data here, look at the configurations, or just pop in and look at the graphical workflow chart and see really where this part is at. I can tell it's approved very distinctly there by looking at something like this. So just a couple of different ways to use the PDM information maybe directly on your 3D models, as opposed to going into the Windows Explorer or the web client or anything like that. So just some nice tools there to help visualize things in your 3D models. Okay, that's our top 10. Tell us what your favorite one was. You can't leave this webinar until you chat your favorite topic. How about that? We thank you guys for coming. I think we could have spent all day here with you guys, but what's going on here, Bailey? What's this guy doing?
He looks like he's been looking for a file for a long time, maybe an hour.
He did not use topic number 9, searching and reusing data. Shame on him. What a crickets. Huh. Searching for data. All right, what's this guy doing?
He looks pretty happy. He looks like he's found his files pretty quickly, and he's working on the right version at the right time. So I think it's safe to say he's pretty happy. He's
most definitely a PDM user.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you guys took away some topics here that were of interest to you. We're going to have some more of these in the series, so stick around. We're going to send you links for the next webinar coming up in 2 weeks. A little bit deeper dive on some of these topics. You know, we kind of just did a generic PDM concept, but we do have the ability to break these products down into standard and professional, and even some higher end functionality using SOLIDWORKS Manage, which kind of resides on top of your PDM professional. So depending on your needs, the size of your organization, the number of files, number of users, we can help recommend which one of these you should maybe start with. And here's kind of the QR code if you guys want to zap that on your way out the door and get access to our next PDM webinar.
Yeah, and today we kind of focused on PDM as a whole, but Chris and Adam are going to focus on kind of, if you're already using PDM standard, how can you improve it with PDM professional? So there's some value in there, especially if you're already using PDM standard.
Awesome. And then for those of you that are struggling or maybe wondering how you get started with any of this, just a reminder that we here at GoEngineer also very specifically for PDM services help with implementations and training. Obviously, that's kind of our core starting point with a lot of customers. Migrating from non-PDM into PDM is a big topic. Maybe you don't want to administer or host it. We can help set that up and run that with you or for you. And then any automation or customization the software can't do, we've probably been asked to do it in the past, and we can help steer you guys down that road as well. The reason for this webinar was actually born off of a blog post we have. So if you guys want to go read up on the actual costs of poor data management, search our blog for that link right there and get some more juicy information in your brains on PDM or non-PDM in this case. I think that's it for us. Appreciate everybody sticking around a couple minutes later. And Ami and Gigi in the backstage, thank you guys for helping, answering questions and proctoring everything for us. We appreciate you as well. And we'll be signing off now, and you guys have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.